Welcome to Woodshop. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. One of the last videos we made an Adirondack chair about regular size, something that I'm thinking of doing for a camp project, and it came out great. It's on the heavier side. I think it's something that the older kids will be able to do. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make another chair, but this one's going to be half the size. So I think half the size, it's going to be lighter, the pieces will be smaller, much more manageable for third graders and fourth grade to do. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start cutting the wood.
As this cutting montage happens in the background, I want to explain a few things. Number one, the original plans for the big chair came from gardenplansfree.com. I'll put the link to the description. That's where the original plans came from. I decided to modify it to make a chair half the size, so I'm going to throw up some diagrams and stuff here that are original pictures from gardenfreeplans.com, but I changed the numbers to match what I'm doing in this project to make the chair half the size. Now, I ran into a few issues here because I thought I could just cut everything in half and use half the wood, and in some instances that did not work, like the upright legs. Where cutting them in half would have been a little more than 9 inches, but those were too small for the vertical legs. I needed to use 12 inches. Also, the armrests, I chose to do 13 inches, which cut them in half, but those were too short, couldn't get the right angle on the back. So for this chair I'm making here, I ended up changing those to 15 inches. Ultimately, in later chairs that I did, I made them 17 inches long, which made things a lot easier. So 2 issues I had there. Third issue I had was, for some reason, I decided on the back to use 4 slats instead of 3 slats. 3 slats would have been half of what the big chair is, but I decided to do 4, and that caused some issues too, as you'll see later on in this video. But what you see up there on the screen are the correct measurements for making this chair half the size of the big chair. And this takes into account all the issues that I had. Step 1 is to create the back legs and connect them together. So our back legs here are 16 inches each with the regular angle cuts that are listed in the plans on gardenplansfree.com. And then the span here going across is a 12-inch piece, not 24 inches as in the plan, since we're cutting in half. 12-inch. The next part of the plans is to nail the upright legs. Now this is where I goofed. My legs were like 9 3/4 inches, and that was not big enough. So I ended up nailing those in, but then later on I went back and I hammered them off, and I nailed in 12-inch long upright leg, which is what you see here. So now I'm jumping a bit back and forth here, but before I fixed those shorter legs, I did go ahead and nail in the seat slats, which is what I'm doing here. I'm nailing in 3 seat slats that are each 12 inches long. Now, after I finished that is when I removed the short legs and then I put on the correct size legs. But had I had the right pieces to begin with, the longer legs would have been on first, and then I would proceed to this step where I'm nailing in the seat slats. The next steps are to nail in the armrests. Now, originally I did this directly in half and had them as 13 inches, which is half of 26, which is what the bigger chair took. But 13 inches for the smaller chair was just too small. I couldn't get a good angle on the back support. So I changed it to 15 inches, and then later on I changed it to 17 inches. 17 inches is what worked best in the smaller chair for me for those armrests. Now we're ready for the back piece, and this is the final part of the chair, and this is where I really messed it up. So I took my 15-inch pieces and I tried to go 4 across instead of 3. Going 3 across would have been exactly half of the chair, but for some reason, and I don't remember why, I decided to try 4 of the 15-inch pieces going across. Now, as you see here, I have to spread apart the armrest to fit that in. It was not the right size, the right width, like left to right, when I used 4 of those pieces. So that was a mistake, but I continued through anyway, and I nailed everything together, spreading those armrests apart using the span that you see there with the 4 pieces. So, you know, I definitely had to adjust a few things there, and you can kind of see that those armrests are not long enough. So because I'm using like 13-inch armrests there. So not only am I going too wide and spreading those armrests out, the armrests also aren't long enough, which I spoke about before, where I increased the size of those to 17 inches. But other than the mess up there, the steps are the same. You know, I'm nailing in those back slats into the back of that seat slat. And my son Lewis is helping me out here a little bit too, nailing those down. But that's what needs to be done. You nail those down. It should have been 3 going across, not 4. And then with 3 going across, it would have evenly matched exactly on a 12-inch cross piece, which is the one you see up at the top. And then that bottom cross piece that connects all 4 is a 15-inch piece, which should be hanging over the edge. And it's supposed to hang over the edge, and that way you can nail it in, the armrest directly into that support bracket that goes across the back. So pretty big mess up there on my part. The chair still came out okay, as you can see here.
Go ahead. Alright, so this is a finished chair. What do you think? Sturdy? Only one person in it. Alright, so I didn't like how the chair ended up, the mini chair here, as far as the back part went. What I had done before was just based on incorrect measurements, essentially. I cut everything in half. Some things needed to be longer, and because some things weren't longer, it kind of affected things. So it really happened with the back part. I couldn't position the back part where it needed to be. The angle wasn't right, and then I couldn't get in proper supports, and all of that was because the armrests weren't big enough. So I changed the armrests. Before, I think I had them as 13 inches. I changed the armrests to be 15 inches, and then that allowed me to put the back where it was supposed to be, directly behind the last chair slat, with 3 pieces of the 15-inch back spread out to cover 1 foot. And then with that in place, being able to get them where they were supposed to be, have a 12-inch support on the bottoms, and then above that, another roughly 15-inch piece being the support that then slid in under the armrests, nailed in from the sides with the 3.5-inch screws. And the end result is this, something that looks a little bit more like the bigger chair, and I like this part better, how it came out with these measurements. So when I do this in the future, I just need to make sure that I have everything measured out correctly. Alright, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.